Step Kid Radio with Matt Mcgill. Weekday mornings, 6 until 9 on the Talk of Chicago, 1690 WVON.
Welcome to WVON, Rahm.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
Absolutely wonderful. You know, look, we saw you, my producer and I, we saw you out at Isola's, and I know you're doing the tour. You're hitting every neighborhood. The city.
I owe the guys there. The three guys, William Moore is one of them, the IBEW worker, breakfast after the election.
That's right. You sat down with. Now let me ask you this, because this is interesting. I know that you are aware of everything that's going on in the news. The committee, the coalition,
everything,
every single thing. The coalition that is focusing on a black candidate for the mayor's race. Yet you've gone all over the city, even though you know there's going to be a candidate coming out of the African American community. And that the African American community is going to be focused on that candidate. That candidate is going to receive the majority. Does that affect the way you campaign in the African American community? Are we going to continue to see you, on the South and West Sides talking about the issues there? Are we going to continue to hear you on WVON and talking about our issues?
Well, first of all, you couldn't be mayor if you didn't campaign, not just campaign all over the city, but to hear the voices all over the city and represent those voices if you were successful enough in getting elected, on the fifth floor. You have to hear everybody's voice. That's the only way to bring a city this diverse with this much passion for the city and for its future. You couldn't be an effective mayor. And of course, I'm going to keep campaigning. Just this week, I was at the Chatham Chamber of Commerce meeting, and they were talking about and met with a number of business folks there, from insurance companies to construction to architectural, what it is to, what they need. Yesterday, different part of the city, Little Village, met with their chamber. I met also with the executives at Ford Motor Company on the far west side. I met with a company that manufactures seats for buses, 4 generations, 500 employees. Those are the kind of, manufacturing jobs you want. But if I will absolutely, regardless of the sense of, you're only going to get X vote or you're not going to get, any votes, I think to be an effective mayor, you not only have to campaign in every part of the city, you have to hear the concerns in every part of the city. So when you are elected, you continue to represent and remember those voices, because that's why you're there.
Ron,
and I say, by way of reference, when I got elected to Congress, I continued a tradition, and I continued something I basically labeled at the end, Congress on your corner, and I did office hours at grocery stores. So anybody just walking in, a lot of people are just kind of, going through the list, trying to make sure they got picked up on the evening on the way home, their stuff. A lot of folks came. We worked through issues, whether it was Medicare issues, veterans issues, immigration issues, but we worked through their issues, and then I heard their concerns, and I think it's a way to never get kind of too distant from the people you're supposed to represent and hear their concerns, their issues, and make sure their voices are heard when you get there.
Rahm, Gaynor Hall from WGN-TV here. I'm wondering, as you continue this listening tour, what specifically are you hearing from voters on the streets about their concerns and what they're looking for in the next mayor, and how is that going to shape your platform moving forward?
Well, I think that there's a group of issues, it's shared widely throughout the city, regardless of where you are. Obviously, everybody has a different take on it, a different priority. Fundamentally, it's about the economy, their jobs, their own economic security. When I was at breakfast that we were just talking about, as well as, if I'm not, William Morris was an IBEW worker from Local 134 who had been unemployed 2 years. One gentleman did home, construction, fixing up, basically, rehab work, and had his 2 sons working with him. And the work had slowed. And so economics, in the sense of the most fundamental, either, their own business, as I heard from the family on the west side that had the manufacturing facility, to job security, the ability to afford an education for their children, a college education. Then I would say, followed by that, by, both education in the general sense of the quality of our neighborhood schools, and then the safety of our streets. And so, as I said repeatedly, that the issues we face as a city are the strength of our schools, the safety of our streets, and the stability of our finances. And because so much of the fiscal order of whether our fiscal house is in order, will determine whether businesses can succeed here, they can open up, expand, or recruit new businesses. But it's from their job security to the safety of their streets to the strength of the school, their neighborhood school.
Whether we like it or not, though, Rahm, race is an issue in Chicago. And I think, at that same breakfast, I think you might remember there was another gentleman who was standing up, Paul Williams, who kind of shouted out a few things about the economy, stimulus, said the stimulus money didn't make it down to. I think you remember the gentleman I'm talking about.
Right.
His anger, and I think you remember, he was angry, he was upset, he wanted you to
frustrated.
hear his voice. He's frustrated. But his anger, though, represents a black Chicago that feels like it has not been served since Harold Washington was mayor. And Mayor Daley did, at times, a masterful job campaigning on these issues, and I can run them down to you. 3% black contracts going out to black businesses, and not just construction contracts. I'm talking about service providers, professional services as well. Yeah. And there's a black Chicago out here that feels like Mayor Daley tap danced around black issues. That the north side, and I know you're a north sider, that you can go to certain parts of this city, and Chicago is a beautiful city. And I always make this joke on the show. I say, yeah, Chicago's a beautiful city. If you live on the north side, you get on that 151 Sheridan bus, you ride down Lakeshore Drive to work. You got the lake on one side and Lincoln Park, beautiful Lincoln Park on the other side. You get off on Michigan Avenue. You got flowers in the middle of the street. You go to work, you eat lunch, you come back home, get on the 151 and go home. It's a beautiful city. But when you get on the red line and you get on the green line and come to work downtown Chicago, you see a different Chicago. How do you address these issues more than just campaign about it? Because that's what the mayor did. The mayor said, we're going to change that 3% for you. It didn't happen. How do you talk to the people like Paul Williams?
Well, first of all, I mean, he has a frustration that goes beyond, and his frustration was about economic security, and that the fact is, and he said that, and I remembered it, is about they did not feel like the Recovery Act, the stimulus bill, had hit the local community, and then when it did, the people in that local community did not get a chance to either bid on the work or get the jobs. So when there was, in fact, on that street, if I'm not mistaken, there was construction, but he did not feel like it was workers from that community. We can have a discussion about, it wasn't designed for like that, but that fact is his frustration was where our voices, our interests aren't getting heard, and we're hurting here more than the average. But the concerns, I want you to know, and yes, on the north side, there's a different economics than on the south side or on the west side. But the aspirations for the same economic security are there. The sense of vulnerability by people, whether it's to pay for their health care, their college education, the mortgage of their home, the security, those are shared. And addressing it may take, obviously, no doubt, takes particular interest in a community, and knowing that, in fact, that community or that sense of the community is not being heard. And I will tell you, every issue I've ever faced, and the one thing that has stuck with me in all this campaigning is I have, dealing with city finances, they will be daunting. I've had daunting issues before. Trying to deal with turning crime around when I've helped pass the Brady Bill or assault weapons, I will be able to look at those and bring a sense of energy and a commitment and a set level of experience. The thing that has intimidated me most in this campaign, and still stays with me, is when I was on 95th and Dan Ryan at that line, greeting commuters, and that sense in those kids' eyes that there was no kind of spark, there was no vitality. That, to me, it is what is daunting about this. And there are policy pieces to this, but there's a human element to this that goes beyond policy. And so when when somebody says, you sure you want this job, given everything that we face as a city, I do want it because I love the city and I care deeply about it. And I think we're at a crossroads. None of those challenges, in my opinion, given the size and scope, scare me. The only thing that's given me pause is when I've seen those kids and I don't see something in their eye. But that, to me, is the hardest part, and giving these kids a sense of hope and opportunity that they can participate in their own, to have a direction of their own future and have a sense of hope for their own future. That to me is what is daunting about this.
Step Kid Radio with Matt McGill. Weekday mornings, 6 until 9 on the Talk of Chicago, 1690 WVON.